What was the point of camping in Pokemon Sword and Shield? If you were anything like me, you interacted with this feature a couple of times during your playthrough, but quickly got bored of having your Pokemon fetch a ball or cooking random curry, and you never touched it again. It wasn't until my playthrough of these games as the mum that I decided to interact with the camping feature a bit more in hopes of getting 2 rare spawn Badoo to show up a bit quicker, since the spawn rates were listed as much higher after making curry. This sounded very similar to the sandwich making mechanic in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, where I can make the curry run into a random encounter and find myself an 18% chance Badoo. But as it turns out, this after making curry rate has nothing to do with random encounters and is instead tied to a mechanic that has a wild Pokemon spawn into the camp and then can join your team. I did not know that this was a thing, and I've played through these games over 30 different times. This made me wonder if I had dismissed camping a bit too soon, and led me down a rabbit hole to explore all the mechanics about it that I may have misunderstood. And in the spirit of sharing knowledge and combating misinformation in an age of AI slop, I thought I'd make this video to talk about all of the interesting things I've learned along the way. Let's begin with the most obvious purpose of the camping feature, which is to build friendship with your Pokemon. At its core, it's just another iteration of the Pokemon Me feature introduced in X and Y, giving players the opportunity to just hang out with their Pokemon, outside the context of battle. You can watch your party interact with one another, use the toys to play with them, and make some food for you to eat together. However, these interactions are not purely cosmetic, as they do in fact help your Pokemon's friendship value grow. If you ever needed to evolve a Pokemon that requires friendship, you've probably seen one of the many guides instructing you to play with your Pokemon at a camp, make some curry when they get tired, and then repeat the process a couple of times until you reach the friendship level required. But as it turns out, this advice is somewhat misleading, especially for players in the late or post-game. And that's because all of the guide makers missed one crucial calculation. Just how much friendship do you gain from all of these camping activities? Getting the answer was a lot more complicated than I expected, so please treat this as more of a good guesstimate. But the first problem I encountered is that most Pokemon come with a base friendship value that would make it hard to tell if you've gained any friendship points or how much from the little friendship checker in Hammerlock. Sure, I could add and subtract friendship points by giving the Pokemon herbal medicine, vitamins, or feathers, but ideally I'd like to have a Pokemon that has a base friendship value of 0. Thankfully, there is one non-legendary Pokemon in Sword and Shield that happens to fit this bill, and that Pokemon is Baniri. This thing hates your guts, probably because it's seen the search results for Lopunny. Anyways, since it has a friendship value of 0, I can tell which activities do and don't give any friendship because getting at least 1 point will change the text I get from this kid. Let's start with things that don't give you any friendship points. Setting up a camp or whistling to a Pokemon to get its attention. So if you do either of those by mistake, there's no consequences. However, pushing the A button to actually talk to a Pokemon, even if you dismiss it right after, that does give you a point of friendship. And actually talking to it, that's an extra point as well. So any form of talking gives you 1 point. Although the main reason you would talk to a Pokemon is to see how friendly it's gotten. I think the rule of thumb is once it has 2 or 3 hearts above its head, that's when you've reached the friendship level needed for evolution. But then what about the toys? Well, it seems like the little cat toy with the bell on it gives you 1 friendship point every time the Pokemon hits it. And for some reason, Pokemon only have enough energy to hit this thing 17 times. After that, they do a little different animation, indicating that they're tired of playing, and you have to make some curry to give them more energy. Using any of the balls gives you 2 points the first time they fetch, and then 1 point of friendship afterwards. I'm not sure what the max energy is for this activity, but I got this Baniri to fetch a ball 20 times without complaining before I got tired of throwing the ball and went to eat some curry instead. So if you like throwing the ball, good luck, I don't know what the limit is. I also tried playing around with the other types of balls that you can unlock from the Curry King, but it seems like they don't give you any more friendship points than the regular ball. They're more of a fun cosmetic gimmick to give you some variety when playing with your Pokemon. So overall, you're getting 1 friendship point per interaction with a toy, which is not much considering max friendship is at 255 points. If you want to really boost that friendship, you have to make some curry, where you get friendship points equal to the sum of the berry rarities used divided by 2. For example, Oran berries have a rarity of 1, so if I toss in 10 of them, that is a sum of 10, divide by 2, ta-da, this curry will give you 5 points of friendship. One thing to mention is that the quality of the curry doesn't matter here. Whether it's Charizard level or nasty old coughing, the Pokemon will gain 5 points of friendship. So if you are very early game and are trying to evolve a Pokemon like say Badoo or Eevee, then yes, the strategy of playing with a Toid and making Curry to reset a Pokemon's energy is the most efficient. You get 17 points from the little cat bell and 5 from your Curry, meaning you have to do the cycle about 4 times to get your newly caught Eevee to evolve. But if you are a late game player working on their Pokedex or trying to build your Pokemon, there is a much faster way. First of all, get yourself the Soothe Bell from this girl in Hammerlock. This will make you gain 50% more friendship points, including from all of the camping activities. And then it's time to become Chef. That is because you have access to much rarer berries in the wild area and overworld that you can reach thanks to the water bike you received after gym number 6. You know, berries like the Salac berry, because I know you've been salacking on collecting them. Well, if you toss in 10 of those berries into your curry, you'll be getting 50 points of friendship. Make another curry with 10 tomato berries, which are much more common, and that is 65 friendship points from a total of 2 curries. Add in the 50% bonus from the Soothe Bell, and you've reached the friendship points needed to evolve your Eevee. No toys required. One word of warning about all this curry making business is that it will give friendship points to every Pokemon in your party, not just the one at the front. This is very important to keep in mind because in this game, they've made it so that your friendship values cap at 160 points through regular means, such as walking together and leveling up your Pokemon. But the actual value can go all the way up to 255. This can only be achieved through camping, so why warn about this? I mean, what's wrong with friendship? Well, I'm glad you asked, Brony Boy, because the affection mechanic like dodging moves, surviving with 1 HP, so on and so forth, those start activating once your friendship level hits 180 points. This means that if you play Sword and Shield without doing any camping, you will never end up triggering the affection stuff, which is a great thing for people like me who prefer to do more challenging runs and are not the biggest fans of affection. Getting a free focus sash just doesn't seem fair, and I love that these games give me a non-intrusive way to completely avoid the mechanic. So if you too want to avoid the affection BS, be sure to box every Pokemon that doesn't need the friendship to evolve before setting up the camp. Otherwise, they will become overpowered monsters after eating your food a couple of times, and you will have to stuff them with a ton of herbal medicine to reduce their friendship levels back to normal. Apart from making your Pokemon more friendly, the camping mechanic comes with its own completionist checklist in the form of the CurryDex, which happens to have 151 entries total. Does that make the Camping King Galarian Professor Oak? There is one curry you can make with Gigantomix and a total of 25 base cooking ingredients you can use for making the rest, plus 6 different flavor profiles for each curry. And of course, there are some cooking ingredients that are version exclusive. Would it even be a Pokemon game if you can complete your Pokedex without having to trade? Except this time, you'd have to ask your friend or second Switch to buy a specific ingredient 6 times, let their Pokemon hold it, and then trade it over to you for cooking. The ingredient, not the Pokemon. Now, if you wanted to actually complete this CurryDex, then the process will take you about 5 hours, and you might need a spreadsheet because it is so easy to lose track of your progress here. What I found to work best is to use the favorite label on every main ingredient you need, then in the berry section favorite the Cherry, Chesto, Pecha, Ralts, Aspir, and Oranberry, shout out to this one Reddit user who made this nice post, and then sort by favorites, which will put them at the top of the list. Then for each curry, you toss in just one berry and remove its favorite label so you know not to use it again the next time you make a curry, and then just go down the list. Once you're done using all of the berries for the specific main ingredient, add all the favorite labels back to the berries and repeat the process for the next ingredient on your list. The one nice part about this whole curry making fiasco is that you don't actually have to play the cooking minigame to make the curry for your dex. It is all based on a timer and the curry will be cooked even if you AFK. In general, it takes me about 2 minutes to make a curry, so to get through the whole dex, it'll take about 5 hours. It's a perfect chance to go enjoy some Can X Become Champion videos while you grind away at this task. Although, if you ask me, it is totally not worth it since the rewards are kinda trash. The Camping Oak will give you extra toys to use in your camp after reaching various CurryDex milestones, all of which are just a silly gimmick, including the Leon Ball, which you can get after making 80 different types of curry. If you do decide to grind out the rest of the CurryDex, the Camping King will then upgrade your fan and ladle that you use while making the curry, so that you can flex on all of your friends who are silently judging your life decisions. I might not have a 401k, but at least I got a gem on my ladle. Unrelated, but here's a link to my Patreon in case you want to keep supporting my poor financial decisions. Thankfully, there is one more reason to make curry, and that's for the special Pokemon encounter method I mentioned at the start of the video. Unfortunately, this does not work like in Scarlet and Violet, where making food boosts the wild encounter rates. Trust me, I tried, there was no effect. The after making curry rates are for Pokemon that show up in the camp after you make some curry. But here's the catch, this encounter rate requires you to build a third invisible stat, sociability.
Well, I just lost all the introverts watching this video.
There is no way to check the value as far as I'm aware, but the two ways to build sociability is by having a Pokemon play with others in the camp, which is very random and unreliable, or through making curry. The only catch is that you have to have 2 or more Pokemon in the party to do so. And this is where the quality of the curry actually matters, because a Charizard class curry will get you 4 times the sociability points of a Coughing class curry.
It's a funny way of saying that if you want to make friends, you should go to a fancy restaurant instead of McDonald's.
But I digress. If you wanted to get Pokemon encounters from making curry, you need to have a minimum level of sociability across your entire party. That would equate to making 10 Charizard level curries, or in the worst case scenario, 40 sloppy curries that you put 0 effort into. And since one is hard to make while the other takes over an hour of grinding,
most people never met the requirements to even make this encounter method possible. Speaking of which, this only works on regular routes and not in the wild area, and I'm not too sure if it works in the NPC camps either, but I never managed to find a Pokemon while in a shared camp, so I'd say do a solo camp just in case. And the last thing to remember is that this sociability requirement is party-wide. So if a new Pokemon joins your party, then your average sociability might fall below that 200 requirement, and your next couple of curries won't spawn in any Pokemon. So if you intend on using this method, I suggest keeping a party of 5 high sociability Pokemon, that way any new members won't lower your score below the requirement. But this requirement is just to make the encounters possible, because
once you do have the sociability score needed for the encounters to be possible, the actual encounter rates are determined by the level of the curry you've made, with the best curries getting you a wild Pokemon encounter 20 to 25% of the time. And of course, if you want to get the good curries, you'll have to use the rare late game berries.
You need a cumulative berry rarity of at least 50 for Charizard class or 30 for Copperajah. Or at least that's what this Reddit post said. If it doesn't work, don't blame it on me. You can do the math yourself, but if you're too lazy, just toss in 5 rarity 10 berries or 10 rarity 5 berries. Sorry if you're dyslexic. Then for the most important part, especially if you want to get that Charizard level curry, you have to fan the flames as fast as heavenly possible, either by tilting the Joy-Con a bunch, or if you're using a controller, mashing those ZR and ZL buttons. I know it says to mash the A button, but I cannot hit that thing fast enough. The goal here is to have the big flame for long enough that your Pokemon displays the little music icon above its head twice before the stirring section begins. If it's only once, the best you're going to be getting is Copperajah. And yes, it is a lot of button mashing for a 25% chance of getting a Pokemon. Oh, and unless you're planning on doing a daily berry route to restock on the rare ones, I suggest saving your game and restarting after making 3 to 4 curries. That way you won't run out in the middle of your hunt.
So while these curry encounters seem like a great way to make rare Pokemon somewhat easy to find, the amount of setup and grinding needed to get to this point is so ridiculous that most people won't bother. Which, once again, begs the question, what is the point? Well, the one clear benefit of getting a Pokemon through this method is that it will always have the curry mark, giving it the title of Curry Connoisseur. And the other is that this is the only way to get a full-out shiny Pokemon if you already happen to have the shiny charm. Which isn't really a benefit if you ask me, just more grinding, but I guess it can work as some sort of a flex to have a shiny Pokemon with the curry mark, implying that you actually had to work for your shiny. Extra points if you get a shiny authentic Sinistea from the Glimwood Tangle. Congratulations, you're now a certified masochist. Might I suggest you go play some games like Sekiro or Dark Souls? I hear those games are made for people like you. But jokes aside, there isn't really any practical value to doing this, so I suspect most people won't bother. Realistically, the only actual practical value of camping is that all of the camping spots you see on the main map of the game also work as flight points that make it a bit easier to get back to each route. All you have to do is talk to the trainer out front without even having to go into the camp, and it will be added to your map.
Of course, there's a few other camping things that I didn't go too in-depth on, like how you can talk to the NPCs within each camp, but they just spew nonsense like the nature of a Pokemon. Would have been the perfect opportunity to add some lore about the local route, but that's asking too much for a random side mechanic, I guess. You could say that at least they got some interesting party compositions, which, yeah, true. There's one with evolutions, Pokemon that evolve with friendship, and even a full-on police squad. Unfortunately, interacting with the NPC's Pokemon doesn't seem to do anything. They don't even get added to your Pokedex as seen, which yet again is another missed opportunity with the camps. And last but not least, it does seem that there's a tiny little chance that your Pokemon might bring you an item after you idle for about 5 minutes. But considering the odds are so low, I'm not even sure I can get this to happen. I'll show it on screen if it did.
And that's all there is to camping in Pokemon Sword and Shield. If there's anything I missed or any other features you'd like me to explore in the future, please let me know in the comments down below. Either way, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!